Right then, let's get started. Right, yes, hello, hi, hello, hi. Oh God. I was rather wishing for a better day than today to shoot these two camera pieces, but I've been waiting for a few days and this unseasonable spout of moist and rather overcast weather has kind of pushed my hand. I'm out of time, I'm out of days. So it's time to just push on, soldier on, keep buggering on. The show must go on because I want to tell you all about my brand new camera, which I love. It is the Lumix S5. And as a matter of fact, all this rain is a perfect opportunity to mention one of the things I like about it. Didn't quite make the list, as the fact that rather appropriately it is dust, splash and rain resistant. So I don't have to worry about using my lovely brand new camera out in weather like this. Doesn't bother me, slightly, at all. It bothers me slightly because that bothers me too. Hello, helicopter. Alright, I admit it that the plan of soldiering on despite the rain didn't exactly work out to plan. I had to throw away a few shots I tried to make because the rain was just making it too difficult and sort of screwing up several shots and things. So if you see some inconsistencies, if you see some continuity errors, like different clothes for example, that's why. I'm reshooting some stuff today. But I want it on record, I tried to soldier on. I didn't give up. I was defeated, but I didn't surrender. Right, so when it comes to content creation, one of the most common questions, one of the first questions most people ask when they're sort of really starting to accelerate into it, they're moving beyond just using their phone or some sort of second-hand hand-me-down camera or something cheap and nasty or whatever it was, is what is the best camera? And I gotta tell you, I hate that question because the usual answer you'll get from self-proclaimed experts is, oh, the best camera is the one you have with you. It's a platitudinous response that isn't very helpful. I mean, it is true, if you have $8,000 worth of camera gear that you never take with you, so it's not ready and there to shoot with you when you want to shoot something, then it's worthless in the end, isn't it? So the best camera you have with you will often wind up being the one in your pocket. But when people ask that question, what they're actually asking is, what is the best value? What is going to get me the best bang for buck? What is going to upgrade the quality and consistency and professionalism and look and feel of and production quality of my content in the most easy to use, the most accessible, biggest value move you can possibly make? Just buy a thing, get running with it, and see a significant improvement in the overall production value of your content. And I have an answer for that for you today. It's this thing, the Lumix S5, and in this video I'm going to give you my top 10 reasons why. I'm going to explain to you why this is the absolute best possible choice for an out-of-box, ready to go, run and gun, make your content, and just an overall upgrade to your content that is going to last you for years and years and years and years and years. This is an investment in your content. So let's start. Reason number 10, physical controls. And this varies a lot between different cameras, and I love the way Lumix do theirs. I've been using Lumix cameras for many years now, and I just love the way they've sensibly laid out their controls. Everything falls exactly under thumb and finger, so all the stuff you need to get to instinctively, without thinking about it, without having to look down at your camera to find out where the controls or labels are and stuff, you can just go do and get stuff done. And all the stuff you don't need to use, actively, instinctively, are put out of the way so you never accidentally hit them and things like that. And the way they've done the controls, the physical controls on the S5 is even a step above the GH5, which I have been using up until this point, until I got this camera and switched over to it, is tremendous. Everything just feels really nice. It's physical and chunky and clunky and sort of tactile where it needs to be, and subtle and out of the way where it doesn't need to be. You've also got a tremendous amount of control on the touchscreen on this camera as well. So if you are a millennial who are used to controlling everything via your touchscreens, then you're not going to be lost there either. You can set up your touchscreen in tremendously flexible ways. There's a bar down the side of it you can customize and put exactly which controls, where you want them and when and how, and that applies to all the buttons, by the way, as well. It's not just the physical buttons on this thing, but the way the buttons are done and the way you can customize the buttons. In fact, you can change the customizer of your buttons without even diving into a menu. Press and hold one of the customizable buttons and it just brings up a list. You go, oh, what would you like this button to do? And you go, oh, I'd like this button to do this from now on, or for this part of the shoot, or whatever it is. It's tremendous, the amount of thought and care that Lumix have put in to how the controls on this camera work. And I've never used a camera that's better at it than this one is, bar none. Reason number 9, manual focus assist tools. Now, of course, this camera has a whole bunch of autofocus modes, from people and animal tracking to point tracking to sort of various area modes and things like that. It's extremely flexible and extremely powerful, but a lot of the time, especially when you're doing very deliberate content, you really do want to manual focus, to have complete and proper control over it. And there is a couple of different things that this thing does for manual focus that make it immensely useful and powerful. The first one is a punch in. So I've got it set up so as soon as I touch the focus dial, it punches in, crops right in, and I can change how tightly it punches in as well. So I can use my little scroll dial here to sort of punch all the way into the face there so I can see the eyes. But you can also set this feature up so it just punches into a little picture-in-picture window, so you can still see your full frame, but you also get a little punch in to help you nail the focus on fine details and stuff like that. If I hit record, you can't punch in while you're recording, but I still do get that secondary one, which you might be able to make out here, which is a coloured highlight, a false colour highlight on the areas that are being focused on. Don't know how well it's coming across on this camera, but if you've seen this sort of feature in use before, you'll know how powerful it is. You can change how intense it is, you can change the colour in which it highlights the focused areas, but that makes it really, really easy, even when you're live filming and focusing, to tell exactly what is in focus and control it properly. Neither of those features are new. I use those very frequently with the GH5, and I love that they're still here, of course, and they work exactly the same way. But what is new is most mirrorless cameras have what's called a fly-by-wire focus wheel. So the focus wheel here is not mechanically connected to the actual focusing mechanisms inside the lens. It's electronic, so it detects, you know, you're turning this electronically, and then electronically controls the focus. The faster you turn this dial, the faster it focuses, so you can sort of quickly focus in on something that's happening real quick. In video mode, that sort of, the slower you turn it, the slower it focuses, the faster you turn it, the faster it focuses. That ruins things. It makes it massively difficult to get repeatable results. So what this camera lets you do is it has a menu option to change this into a linear mode. Non-linear is pretty much the standard way you find on pretty much all the cameras out there these days. Focus responds according to the rotation speed of the focus ring. Well, this lets you go into linear mode. Focus responds according to the rotation angle of the focus ring, and you can even set exactly how much of that you want, so you can have very, very fine control or very, very broad control depending on your particular taste and your particular lens. You can match that up properly. It is a huge, massive game changer for manual focus in video mode. So it changes the focus the same way for the same rotation amount every single time, regardless of how fast you do it. So 180 degrees will always be 180 degrees and will always focus the same depth no matter how quickly you do it. And that is a huge game changer for video, because it means you can get repeatable focus pulls again and again and again. You can rehearse. If you need to focus pull from front to back, from one person to another, you know exactly how far to turn it. You don't have to try and guess. You don't have to try and make sure you get the same speed every single time, otherwise you get the variations of that focus happening. You can do it wonderfully, repeatably and reliably every single time, and you can sort of go from there to there and know exactly how much focus it's going to change, and that makes it incredibly repeatable and incredibly reliable and incredibly useful. And that is a huge game changer as far as the way these fly-by-wire focusing systems work in video. Reason number 8, frame markers. And this is really important. A lot of content these days is being formatted for the screens on our mobile devices, which are very often 2:1, not 16:9. As is, you know, common on sort of big screen stuff, your TVs and our monitors on our computers and stuff like that. A lot of people are watching content. In fact, a little over half of you people, according to my stats here on YouTube, are watching my content on mobile phones. And so using frame markers, which are little overlays on the screen here, I can account for that. I can have 2:1 frame markers, so I can frame everything up. So if I want to crop down to a mobile phone aspect ratio, I know that I haven't accidentally cropped anything out top and bottom of the frame when I was filming in the first place. But it's not just a 2:1 frame rate. You can do square, you can do other aspect ratios and widescreen and ultra. It gives you a tremendous amount of flexibility and power when you're framing up your content. Even if you're recording in 16:9, you can have those frame markers on screen so you can make sure you are framing up correctly for your intended production exported aspect ratio. Reason number 7, vlog. And no, I don't mean vlog as in video log, I mean V-log. Now, with this camera, like most cameras, you can shoot with a bunch of different picture profiles, you know, portrait or landscape or black and white or, you know, all that kind of stuff. But it also supports something called vlog, and this was a paid upgrade to some previous cameras. It's just included by default here. But shooting vlog, or shooting flat as it's sometimes called, gives you a very sort of washed out, sort of drained looking image straight out of the camera. But the advantage of doing it like this is it gives you huge amounts of control to control the look and feel of your image afterwards. You can apply LUTs or lookup tables to get specific kinds of looks, to emulate old film stocks, or, you know, make your stuff look like The Matrix or whatever it is. And I know I'm dumbing it all the way down here, but I'm just trying to give the people who don't know what vlog is for a quick impression of why you would want it. Those of you who know why you want it already know why you want it and already know how important it is and how vital it is, how powerful it is. But for the rest of you who don't know, just know that it gives you a massive amount of control over your image in the editor. It also gets you more dynamic range, so you are retaining more details in the highlights and more details in the shadows. And again, in the editing process, that gives you a lot more control over the final look of your image than just doing a baked-in look in camera. Reason number 6, Wi-Fi/Bluetooth. And of course, you can do all the usual things you can do with a Wi-Fi connection. It's not an unusual feature in your cameras these days. A lot of them are able to connect over Wi-Fi and or Bluetooth for, shifting your files around or even remote shooting. But the reason in particular I recommend it with the Lumix S5 is because the way their app works is unusually powerful, just like the cockatoos in the background are unusually loud today. Shush! They were perfectly quiet when I pressed record, I promise. But yeah, the power of this, I don't need it often, but when I do, it's an absolute lifesaver, because I am a one-man band. I shoot, I am my own cameraman, my own sound man, my own on-camera man, my own editor, my own publisher, all that kind of stuff. But when I do need to shoot further away from the camera, or I've just mounted the camera in a hard-to-reach place, or I can't quite see the screen where I've mounted it, or things like that, being able to get a smooth live feed and have complete and total control over all of the essential features. And I can do everything from here that I can on the controls on that camera there. That's what makes the Lumix solution so much better. The way they've implemented this, the amount of power and control you've got in this, you can change modes, you can change everything you need to, and just having that very smooth, very well affected live feed with very, very minimal lag, by the way, and that's a huge problem with some of these solutions, huge amounts of lag and stuff, or bad frame rates and things like that. This is tremendously good, and I love it. And like I said, I don't need it that often, but when I do, it's the only solution that'll work for what I'm trying to get done with it. So that makes it essential, and that makes it a top tier list of features. Not the feature itself, but the way Lumix have done it. And sometimes I need it for shots like I just did. They're there with a little walk up to camera. Sometimes, like I said, the camera's just in an awkward position. Sometimes I just want to check that, if I'm shooting with a longer lens or something, I want to check that I'm in focus, because I can't reach over and change the focus on the camera and then come, it just makes it easy to be able to go focus right there and tap on the screen and tell it where to focus. Like this shot, for example, I'm at the telephoto end of the lens. There is no way I can reach the camera to give the shutter button a little tap to make sure everything's refocused. I can barely see the screen from here, I'm so far away. So I can't tell whether I'm in focus, but I can with the app, of course. And of course, if I wanted to tap on the background there and focus in on that tree instead of my big mug, then I can do that. And I can bring myself back into focus just by giving myself a little tap there, and back we come. And like I said before, I've got everything I can do on the back of the camera I can do from here. It's tremendously powerful, and it's laid out in a very similar way that it is on the camera. So everything's sort of at your fingertips and intuitive. You're never lost or confused or hunting for, where do they hide that feature? It's all there, where it should be, sensibly. And nobody else has done this better, in my opinion. No other Wi-Fi companion app has done it better than this, and that's why this makes the list, even though it's a fairly common feature set on other cameras out there. This is why this makes the list about why this camera is the best choice, because they do this the best. Reason number 5, emergency power. Right, here's the scenario. You need some emergency power. You've been having so much fun shooting everything with your S5, you've managed to burn through the battery and you don't have a spare yet. Foolish you. Or maybe you've burned through both your batteries. Oh dear, what are you going to do? Are you stuck in the mud? Are you done for the day shooting? Do you have to revert to your phone for shooting the rest of the stuff? No, you don't, because guess what? There's a USB port right there, and you can use that for data, of course, but it just so happens to be compatible with the fast charging protocol. So you can just slam this into your handy dandy battery bank, because you carry one of those for your phone and all the other gadgets and your lights and whatnot anyway, don't you? Of course you do, because you're not an idiot. Well, you can plug this in, and guess what? If you've got your camera turned off, it will charge your battery for you. And if you've got your camera turned on, it will actually siphon power from the USB power to run the camera. Depending on what you're doing, it might still sort of drain more power than can be supplied here. But if it's doing that, it will drain it from this battery first and then your camera battery second. So when you're in a position where you can sort of put up with the bulk of having a battery connected to your camera via a wire, you can save your battery by using that. Then when you need to be portable, you need to run and gun, you can unplug that and you're ready to go. And like I said before, if you've got your camera turned off, plugging in that USB power will actually charge the battery. So if you're on a lunch break or something, you can plug in your camera to your battery bank, and by the time you finished your lunch, you get back to it, you've had a nice coffee, you've got more juice in the battery ready to go. Brilliant, I love it. Reason number 4, the tremendous utility and accessibility of its storage. Now yes, features of convenience that a lot of cameras aimed at the higher end, particularly a lot of the full frame mirrorless cameras we've seen over the last few years, don't have. Dual SD card slots. A lot of other cameras go for the fancier higher end, the rarer, the more expensive memory card slots. You don't need that. A couple of SD card slots, that's all I need. Cheap, everywhere, easy to get. So if you do run dry in the field, if you do lose one while traveling, you can walk into basically, I mean, you can get them from corner stores sometimes, crying out loud. Any office supply store, any electronics store, any camera store, obviously. SD cards, they're everywhere. Cheap, easy, commodity, and absolutely reliable in my experience, so long as you go with a decent brand. And of course, having two means you can set them up in a couple of different ways. You can set them up to automatically back up, so you have the same stuff on both cards. So if one card does fail, you've got the second card as a backup with exactly the same data on it, just in case. You can set up to roll over, so when one card fills up, it starts using the other one. You can even set it up to put still photographs on one and video on the other. So if you have two different workflows, you know, for your social media stuff, you've got YouTube and your Instagrams or whatever, you've got two separate cards to keep that stuff on to help you organize a bit better. I'm not good at organization, so I don't shoot like that. I use the rollover one, save me having to swap cards and not worry about filling a card up so much. But you know, you might be better than I am at that. Right, yes, I know, the keen-eyed amongst you will have already spotted I lied a little bit when I promised you this was all about the out-of-box experience and how perfect it was, right out of the box, no more gear to buy, anything like that. And that exception is, of course, microphones. I'm using microphones. Well, that fits in with my usual recommendations anyway. You gotta have a decent microphone. I'm gonna show you what the on-camera microphones sound like in a minute, and they're okay. But if you're gonna take this YouTube thing seriously, and if you're spending the money on a camera like this, you are taking it seriously, you have to invest in a good microphone. Not what this video is about, but it does give me the window to talk about the things I like about how this camera handles using microphones. They made some rather fantastic changes to how the microphone gain is handled inside the camera. Now, all cameras have microphone gain. They boost the signal, which is usually pretty low, from the microphone into the camera and record it so it's at a perfectly listenable level. Some cameras use an automatic gain control to try and control that automatically. That's almost always a really bad idea if you're trying to do good stuff. Most cameras, most good cameras, including this one, of course, let you manually adjust that gain. I like to adjust that gain all the way down because doing it in post gives you a bit more control over letting the camera boost the signal. Now, the thing I like about what the S5 has done is all the other Lumix cameras I've had, you can go to -6 decibel on the gain, which is fantastic. This lets you go to -12, which is a whole new world of power and flexibility and control, and I love it for that. Oh no, I've been a complete idiot again. I've forgotten to charge the battery for my wireless microphone pack. It's not working anymore, and I've forgotten to bring my on-camera shotgun microphone. I'm a buffoon, I'm an idiot, I'm a clown. However shall I get through this shoot? I need to record some audio. Well, I can use the on-camera audio, can't I? I think it's not bad. I mean, I never actually want to use on-camera audio because, well, quite frankly, I own nice microphones and I would like to use the nice microphones. Why wouldn't I when I already own them? But if you are caught in an emergency or there's something sort of really quick you have to shoot, you know, you've just got to whip your camera out of your bag and shoot it straight away. You don't have time to dig out your microphone and plug it in and clip it onto the camera and get going. You just go run and gun. Well, you can get away with it because this is how that audio sounds, and I think it's serviceable. There is a headphone jack on here too, which allows you to live monitor your audio. You can either live monitor direct from the microphone, so you can hear exactly what the microphone is bringing in, or you can live monitor what the camera is doing after it's applied, whatever gain it's doing. Most vitally of all, there is a speaker on the camera itself. It's relatively quiet, so when you're checking your footage after the fact, having a pair of headphones you can plug in and listen to your audio properly, make sure you've nailed it, make sure you got it right, make sure there are no problems, is extremely vital, and it frustrates me no end. How many cameras out there just don't have headphone jacks on them? I know why they do it. Save money, save space, save complexity, but it's kind of vital to have one. And all of that combined brings the way audio is handled on the Lumix S5 to number 3 on my list of top 10 reasons this is the best option for YouTubers out there. Out of the box, easy peasy, way to go. Reason number 2, the flippy twisty screen. It's amazing how many cameras, how many full frame mirrorless cameras just don't have them because they're designed for a higher end market. They're designed for people who rig their cameras up in cages of equipment that have separate field monitors hooked up to them and connected up to them and things like that, and big complicated stupid rigs that I hate trying to work with in the field because they're big and stupid and complicated and heavy and way too much equipment to take with you. I like small, lightweight, ready to go. And tilty flippy screen, kind of important for that. So that goes on the list. I know it's not that rare a feature, but as far as, you know, high-end full frame mirrorless cameras go, it is annoyingly rare. So thank you, Lumix, for putting one on this. And now the ultimate answer to what makes this the best out of box, and it does set it apart from a lot of the other competition in a big and serious and important and extremely valuable way, and that is the kit lens. Well, all right then, Blunty, why'd you go ahead and tell me why this kit lens is so special? Because on paper it doesn't seem special. It's small, it's light, it's plastic bodied, it's it's reasonably slow by lens standards as far as the aperture goes. It's variable aperture. It's extremely common by kit lens standards. What makes it so special? What makes this stand out above any other lens? Well, for a start, it's pretty good for a kit lens, image quality wise, but again, that's not too uncommon these days. Kit lenses have come a long way, but the thing that makes this one special is Panasonic have realized how people are using their lenses. So instead of the sort of 28mm wide end that pretty much every single kit lens has out there, regardless of who makes it, or even sensor size or body size of the camera, it's usually this. Panasonic have gone, well, you know what? Let's make the wide end useful for YouTubers and vloggers and stuff by making it nice and wide so they can get a nice comfortable handheld shot that isn't sort of claustrophobic and close up and you can't see anything around you. You lose any sense of environment. I love this lens. This is the best kit lens I've ever used. Partly because image-wise it's pretty damn good. Mostly because I can do this right out of the box, which makes this the most useful lens I've ever had, kit lens-wise, for making content. Because not only is it good for this vloggy stuff, because it is a much more comfortable focal length for doing this vloggy stuff, but everything else that I do, whether I'm shooting conventions or whether I'm shooting at home tabletop stuff or product demos and things like that, it's the wide lenses I use most often, because you're usually dealing with limited space. When you're shooting at a desk, you want a wide lens so you can get as much in as possible. You don't have to put the camera way up high where you can't bloody reach it to try and demo something in front of the camera, or when you're reaching around the camera, you're sitting behind the camera, you're reaching around it to manipulate something in front of, for your audience or whatnot. Wide lens is super helpful for that. When you're shooting at events, wide lens is super helpful, because if you're doing something in front of your camera, on a tripod for example, you don't want to have to stand too far away from your camera, because your microphone cable, if you're not going wireless, tripping hazard, you want to be there ready to catch your tripod if some idiot trips over it. And getting close-ups of stuff using a wide-angle lens is a bit easier in that kind of environment as well. No matter what content you do, a wide-angle lens is going to make your life easier, I promise you. The only exception is wildlife. But you've got the telephoto wide end of this anyway. I mean, it's only 60mm, it's not a wildlife-friendly lens, but you know what I'm saying. The flexibility of this lens is above and beyond any other kit lens anyone has in their box. Pure and simple. All right, so closing remarks. There are some things that are really good about this camera, but don't necessarily make the top 10 list, because, well, then it'd be top 14 or 15, and it's just not as snappy a number as 10, is it? Battery life. Battery life is tremendous. I get about 2 to 2.5 hours worth of video recording out of this thing, depending on what mode I'm in, whether I'm in 1080p or 4K or slow-mo stuff. It's in that window, 2.5 hours, which is about what I used to get out of my GH5, and that's tremendous. Plus, I can do something I didn't do with my GH5, and I talked about this in one of the tips, that battery backup thing. Adaptability, and I'll talk more about this in some follow-up videos, in some non-sponsored ones, because I'm going to talk about some non-Lumix equipment, and that's not appropriate for a sponsored video, of course, but adaptability, and that's something I liked about my Micro Four Thirds cameras, like the GH5 and the G7 and stuff, the tremendous adaptability in being able to put a whole bunch of different lenses on that thing. It's less adaptable than that in this respect, because it's a full-frame sensor, and that just, by default, is less adaptable than the smaller sensor on a Micro Four Thirds camera, but I can still adapt a tremendous amount of different lenses to this thing, and I'm going to do a video all about that and have some real fun and use some classic lenses I've been dying to use again. But yeah, you still have a tremendous amount of adaptability in adapting different lens mounts to this thing. So if you do have old lenses, keep hold of them, because you might be able to use them with this still. Utility, mobility, and reliability. I'm just going to ball these up all at once because I'm starting to ramble a bit in my excitement here. But because this camera is the size that it is, the form factor that it is, it has the features that it does, is adaptable as it does, is as flexible as it does, is as powerful as it is in the way it can shoot different things and stuff. There is no other camera on the market that I would personally recommend to anyone who just wants a tool to be as powerful as possible, right out of the box, ready to go, to do a tremendous amount of different styles of content, whether you're doing the vloggy thing, whether you're doing the at the desk thing, whether you're doing the streaming thing even. I've set this up on my desk and did a little streaming test with it. Whether you're doing the sort of run and gun documentary style shooting, or you're using it more seriously in a more controlled environment for shooting independent movies and stuff, whether you want to rig it up in a big cage and put a whole bunch of stuff on external monitors and external audio sources and all that sort of stuff. You're not just trapped with using it how it comes out of the box, but the power it has out of the box and the path in front of it make it just easily the best thing I can recommend to someone wanting to upgrade their YouTuber content or whatever platform content instantly. And the final non-numbered list item is trust. I myself have been shooting with Lumix cameras for years now, 7, 8, 9 years, something like that. Started with a G6, G7, G85, GH5, and now the S5. And I've been disappointed with none of those cameras. They've all been tremendous workhorses throughout the years. And this is just an upgrade to everything, literally everything I've ever loved about any of those previous Lumix cameras has been upgraded in some way with this, and I couldn't be happier about it. And none of those cameras have ever let me down in the field, and they've never broken down in some sort of weird way. They've always behaved extremely reliably, extremely consistently, and I have a tremendous amount of trust personally in that brand, which is why I've been using it for so many years now, and why when Lumix said, "Hey Blunty, would you like to make some videos about the S5?" I went yes straight away. Didn't even have to think about it. I wasn't like, yes, just yes. And that, with all the other reasons I've just talked about, is why this is absolutely, without a doubt, the camera I recommend to anyone looking to upgrade the production quality, the power, the flexibility of their own sort of video projects, no matter whether it's YouTube or TikTok or whatever the kids are doing next. I don't know, I'm old and grey. But yeah, the S5, tremendous camera. Absolutely tremendous, and I'm looking forward to making even more content about it, so make sure you subscribe, make sure you ring the bell. Thank you as always to the patrons floating up above there. You know I love you and appreciate your tremendous support. So I am Blunty, thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you next time. I'm going to walk off screen like it matters. I'm still here, I'm just behind the camera. Oh, oh, oh. Hi.